Today we're going to talk about something that absolutely infuriates me because this is a losing battle for the Second Amendment. Even red states are accepting this infiltration under the guise of safety. And today, yet another state is looking to violate your rights under the guise of safety. The proposal is so bad that even the police there are coming out against it. Not for the right reasons, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, due process, the Second Amendment. No, but they are telling citizens to vote against it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets. This is the premier source for Second Amendment news, and I cover things in a way that you might not have heard before. My goal is to open your eyes to see how our constitutional right, specifically this right to keep and bear arms, is under constant attack. And I want to thank you for tuning in. If you're new here, my name is Jared, and we're going to dive into a very important issue being voted on in Maine this November. It's question 2, and this is in a lot of states. It's a proposed red flag law. Now, the largest police union in Maine is the Fraternal Order of Police, and they've come out strongly against this measure, calling it a disaster waiting to happen was their quote. And I want to walk you through why they're opposed to it, why I'm opposed to it, and what this measure would do, and how it differs from the current law they have there. Maine has a yellow flag. And let's discuss this, because this is bad. And for those who aren't familiar with what a red flag really is, I'm going to tell you everything it violates and how it's the biggest risk to not only the Second Amendment, but our way of life, the way this country was structured. First, what exactly is question 2? Well, in Maine, coming up on November 4th, voters will consider a measure that would expand so-called red flag laws, even though they don't have a red flag law yet. They have a yellow flag law. Two wings of the same bird, two sides of the same coin. But these laws allow authorities to remove firearms from individuals deemed to pose a risk. Now, under current Maine law, like I said, it's a yellow flag law. There are certain safeguards built into the law. A standard of proof that's required is higher than what a red flag law is as far as standard of proof. The yellow flag law in Maine is clear and convincing evidence. There's also mandatory involvement of a qualified mental health professional before firearms can be removed. I still don't agree with it because it violates our rights. But the proposed question 2 would change several of those key components. It would drop mandatory confirmation by a qualified mental health professional before removal of guns, meaning they get to disarm you faster, easier. It would lower the burden of proof from clear and convincing to a preponderance of evidence. And for those who don't work in the legal field, that's basically more likely than not. Simple threshold to meet. Enforcement would shift the dynamic totally. Under the existing law, police become involved after certain steps. Under the new proposal, the red flag law, cops might become involved at the beginning, the most volatile stage. In short, the Fraternal Order of Police says this isn't just a tweak, it's a major shift in how these orders would operate and how firearms would be removed. So why is the Maine FOP strongly opposed? I told you it wasn't the right reasons, in my mind, but you tell me if I'm wrong. Well, let's break down their concerns. The police, the FOP, the union, calls it a disaster waiting to happen. Their main argument is it will not make Maine safer. I agree with that. But instead, they believe it increases risk to the public, to families, and to law enforcement officers. They fear that the law enforcement here would be pulled into more dangerous, unpredictable situations, especially because the person from whom the firearms are being removed might still be in their home. They might be in their community and may have remained armed until the removal step. Why? Because they're American citizens and they have that right. Now, this heightened potential threat for violence is what the police are really concerned about. Not about violating someone's rights, not about the Constitution, not about what the founders have structured. None of that. It's just, hey, we don't want more risk to us. And I understand that point. Nobody wants to be thrust into the fire for something that may or may not even be true. And another concern is without the requirement of a qualified mental health professional's involvement, the measure might rely on non-professional opinions. This is exactly what the anti-gunners want. Parade somebody out there and say, oh, I'm a community care person, and yep, that person's crazy, take their guns, haha. Meanwhile, they're getting paid by Bloomberg and Soros and the like. So, they say that law enforcement would be strained more than they are already. They're being stretched thin more than they are already. And they would have to now deal with orders to remove firearms from individuals. So that's the police side, all right? That's their view. Now here's the truth. This is the truth, and this will not only make you angry, it's going to give you the information to share with others, because a lot of people don't know the truth about red flags. They were just like, yay, take guns from crazy people. Yay, maybe save the world. Unicorns and rainbows. No, red flag laws, often called extreme risk protection orders, are unconstitutional because they allow the government to confiscate firearms from someone before they've even committed a crime, let alone be convicted of one. Remember, we have this legal structure, this court system that our forefathers died to set up. Well, this removes that whole thing. It violates the Second Amendment. Red flag laws directly infringe on the right to keep and bear arms without due process or criminal conviction. The Constitution guarantees that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Under Bruin in 2022, the Supreme Court reaffirmed that any firearm restriction must align with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. There is no historical tradition of disarming someone based on accusations or predictions of future behavior. Red flag laws flip the logic entirely, taking away constitutional rights before any wrongdoing occurs. Well, they might do it. I feel it would feel safer if they didn't have the right to defend themselves. Ooh. They also deny due process, which is a violation of the 5th and the 14th Amendments. Many red flag laws allow guns to be seized without notice or even a hearing. A lot of them use ex parte orders. That means someone's firearms can be taken before they've even had a chance to defend themselves in court. Ex parte is in secret. You don't even know what's happening. The government doesn't have to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt like is required if you're charged with a crime, or even meet the lower standard of probable cause to arrest people. Just reasonable fear or concern. Woo. Now this violates the 5th and the 14th Amendments, which guarantee no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Stop me if you've heard this stuff before. Number 3, erosion of the presumption of innocence, which is a huge one that nobody talks about. In America, you are innocent until proven guilty. Red flag laws reverse that standard. Instead of government having to prove that you're dangerous, you have to prove you're not. This weaponizes suspicion and emotion over evidence and fact. A dangerous precedent that's closer to guilty until proven innocent. And then there's the violation of the 4th Amendment. The 4th Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Confiscating firearms from a citizen without a warrant supported by probable cause, you know, those things that the Constitution says, or without evidence of a crime is an unreasonable seizure. Period. Courts have historically ruled that property cannot be seized without a clear, lawful basis, and possible future danger doesn't meet that standard. Then it opens the door, obviously, to abuse. Red flag laws are ripe for misuse, especially by, vindictive ex-partners, neighbors, family members with grudges, as well as political or ideological bias by law enforcement or the courts. And since the process often lacks transparency or oversight, innocent people can be stripped of their rights based on false claims. And restoring those rights can take months and thousands in legal fees, if it happens at all. And if you're sitting back there saying, not in my state, I live in a red state. Florida misuses red flags more than anybody in the country. Florida, the gunshine state. Then there's the violation of the 6th Amendment. You're thrusted into the court system, but only then do you learn one of the anti-freedom crew's secret weapons. Since red flag and yellow flag or purple flag, whatever the hell they want to call it, since those orders are civil matters, there is no right to an attorney, meaning that your defense, and if you want an attorney, it's all out of your pocket. It's all out of your pocket. No court-appointed attorney for indigent defenders either. Sorry, too bad. And then there's the historical and constitutional context. At the founding of the Republic, yes, we're a republic, not a democracy. We fought not to become a democracy. We don't want to be a democracy. No law existed that allowed authorities to disarm individuals based on speculation. Period. In Heller, which was back in 2008, the Supreme Court affirmed that the Second Amendment protects an individual's ownership for lawful purposes, such as self-defense of firearms, obviously. And Bruin reinforced that. They said that regulations must have a clear historical analog from the 18th and 19th centuries, and red flag laws have none. If anything, the founders feared exactly this sort of government overreach, where authorities could strip citizens of rights based on accusations or emotion. Now, practical failures of the system here. Even beyond the constitutional issues, red flag laws have failed to prevent crimes or suicides in states that enact them. They give a false sense of security to those weak people, my feelings, while punishing law-abiding citizens. And because these laws are enforced by armed officers during confiscation raids, they've already led to fatal encounters, like the 2018 case in Maryland where the police shot and killed a man during a red flag confiscation at 5 a.m. Why? Because they bang on the door, he wakes up startled, answers his door with a gun, and they send him to the creator. Now, they allow the state to take rights away based on accusation, not action, something our founding fathers would have called tyranny. And you know what? You know who's a fan of it? Our Attorney General, Pam Bondi. For those who always say, Jared, you got to lay off Pam Bondi. Nope. I will hold their feet to the fire and demand that they follow the Constitution. If you don't believe me about Pam Bondi, Google search it. In fact, in Trump's first term, she was sitting right to his left, telling him we should have red flag laws national, allow the police to go in and take the guns. Police, remember? The whole thing was like, take the guns first, due process later. Yeah, it was that whole enactment. That was Pam Bondi sitting next to him. So if you're in Maine, the vote is November 4th. And if you have something in your state coming up or your city for red flags, you need to pay attention. And for those who agree with the Constitution and individual liberty, this message is clear. Vote no, because you believe it creates tyranny. Folks, that wraps up our deep dive into Maine's question 2, and more specifically, red flag laws and orders, and why we should strongly oppose it. And if you found this helpful, please hit the like button. More people need to see this video. This particular video needs to be seen by every person in this country. Not only gun owners, but everybody, so that those who believe that red flags are great can know exactly how unconstitutional they really are. And there's a saying, F your feelings. Like, we have rights, and they don't change because of how you feel. So please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I'm going to keep bringing this to you unfiltered. You can make up your own decision. I'm just giving you the news, giving you the facts. And hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Guys and gals, I appreciate y'all. Drop a comment down below. If you're in Maine, how will you vote on this? Thank you for watching. Until the next video, stay safe, stay vigilant, carry a gun to keep you, your friends, your family, your community safe. It's on us, this whole republic thing. Nobody's coming to save it. It's on us. Take care.